Okay, I want to welcome you all. Thank you for coming to the April 26th board meeting for the Niagara Regional Police Service Board. Right off the bat, I'd like you all stand and have a moment of silence. I'll explain in a second. On Monday, the city of Toronto was impacted by a horrific accident that claimed the lives of 10 people and injured 15 others. Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims, their families, our first responders, and to all those affected by this tragic event. At this time, I would ask that you please stand and join the Police Services Board in a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Look, before we begin the public meeting, I'd like to remind everyone that today's meeting is being recorded and the video will be posted to the board's YouTube channel following the meeting. Right off the bat, my notes go for a while, so I'll be talking for a bit here. A special thank you to the town of Fort Erie and Mayor and Council. Firstly, I would like to thank Fort Erie Mayor Wayne Redicott. Wayne, you're at the back. You're at the very back. You're not used to that, I guess, eh?
It's nice here.
Okay.
It's like kind fence.
Your council and staff for hosting our board meeting here today. I'd also like to recognize Mayor Redicott, town councilors, the CAO Tom Cook. I see Sandy Annunziata at the back there, just walked in, regional councilor, staff, etc., for joining us here this morning. I'll be asking you gentlemen to make a few comments in a few minutes. Your attendance and participation is very much appreciated. As many are aware, the board decided to change the location of its board meeting today in an effort to promote community awareness of the role of the board and to stay in touch with community concerns over policing issues. The board has decided to hold at least 2 public interest community engagement meetings a year in our local municipalities, and we look forward to visiting the town of Niagara Lake on September 27th, as well as other parts of the region in future years. I'd also like to take this opportunity to welcome citizens of Fort Erie to our meeting. Also, I see in the crowd is Dean Demizio, who is running for the Liberal MPP. Did I get that right this time, Dean? Thank you. After the presentation today and following the items of business on the agenda, the meeting will be open to community members for general comments or questions. I would ask if anyone would like to speak or to ask the board or police service questions to please see Deb or Don. Deb, Don, where are you? Don's down there. For community members for general comments or questions. So you see Deb or Don so we can hear you. Now, we're going to go off the norm here. If anybody walks in and wants to say anything, because we've only come to Fort Erie never in the history of the Police Service Board, if a citizen comes in and wants to make a comment, all I care is that they show respect like would be expected in the town of Fort Erie. So see Don and allow anybody to speak here today. I would ask, should anyone wish to make any additional comments or submission, you may also contact the board by mail, email, or telephone. We look forward to hearing from our citizens with their views. I'd like to invite Mayor Wayne, I guess, to the podium, Wayne, to provide comments on behalf of the town of Fort Erie.
You have to push the button on the left hand
Okay, thank you.
That activates these. I have an understanding of how important that button can be. So it's my great pleasure to welcome all of you to the town of Fort Erie to hold this meeting. And this is an unusual and an auspicious occasion because it does provide an opportunity for you to come out to have the interface with the members of our community. And the value of the service that you provide cannot be underestimated. So it's important that you come here. I hope that there will be more people from the town of Fort Erie that will come here. We'll ask questions about enforcement at stop signs, speed limits on the local roads, how they're enforced, that type of thing, because those are very important issues, and they may seem, when we deal with the larger issues, the big budget items, the large construction projects, the events that you have to police, they may seem very small, but have a large impact in the communities. And all of you live in communities, so you understand that. And I'm sure that some of you hear it. I can't believe that Councillor Barrick, who comes from a community about the size of Fort Erie, doesn't hear comments or concerns about people stopping at stop signs, people going too fast in certain local urban areas. So that's very important. I had anticipated that as I drove here, I might have a free pass because there might not be any police officers on my route. I got to say that your officers are out and about, and they were on the road, and so I was obligated to drive the speed limit, which is something that we should all encourage. I'm working on it, and perhaps we'll get better as time goes on. As first responders, you're responsible for guiding and directing the important police services in our communities. There is a very important link between your work, the work of the police officers, and the community. Probably among the most important work in our communities, aside maybe from healthcare, but certainly on par with the other important services, education, etc. So, as I said, it's my great pleasure to welcome all of you here. I wish you great success in your deliberations today. I know that they will be wise, and the decisions that you make will serve all of us. And I welcome you to come back again, now that you've set this pattern. Hopefully you will feel compelled to return. This is a great chambers for you folks to occupy and utilize, and we welcome you back and thank you for coming today.
Well, thank you for saying that, and also Staff Sergeant McAllister, Kim McAllister will be making a presentation here. I hope you'll stay for that, and if you have any questions or anybody has any questions of her and the policing in the Fort Erie area and that, please ask them or, email me anytime.
Right, and I must say that Chair Gale, on any occasions when I have asked you about issues of policing interest in Fort Erie, you've always been very responsive. And I know that that's true with other individuals who've been directed to you, so I want to thank you for that as well.
Thank you very much.
And I will stick around until later.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next person I'd like to invite up here is Councillor Sandy Annunziata, who's a regional councillor. He sits beside me at regional council, and he's the one that pestered when this first idea came out, that can you have it in Fort Erie sometime. So then I turned to Wayne, and Wayne Redicott said, sure, any time up here. So go ahead, Sandy. Thanks.
Well, thanks, Bob. Sorry, Chair, Chairman Gale. So Bob does sit next to me at regional council, and I can honestly say that when he made the motion to have councillors rotate seats, it was probably the worst day of my life, Bob, because I enjoy sitting next to you, and we get a lot of work done at the region, and I'm appreciative of your vast knowledge of many, many issues. But I'd like to welcome the board, certainly, to the town of Fort Erie. And just like I have in the past, I want to thank Staff Sergeant Darren Forbes for his previous work here in the town of Fort Erie, and welcome Kim McAllister. Our first experience was a great experience because we have some issues in the town of Fort Erie, and the local BIAs certainly challenge the Police Services Board and our men and women to make sure that they're doing their job and policing accordingly, especially in our downtown business district. So I know that the role of government is dynamic and it's ever-changing, but one thing is a constant, and it's the priorities of the community. And when I listen to the community, what I hear, and it may seem a little old-fashioned, but it's still the same holy trinity of good community building, and it's the 3 Ps. It's pavement, it's pipes, and it's policing. So I'm appreciative that the board has made this journey to Fort Erie. I still believe that there's a lot of work to do when it comes to community building, and I encourage our men and women to certainly get into the community, get to know the teachers, get to know the coaches, get to know the crossing guards, because that's how communities are built. And I have no doubt that our Police Services Board and our men and women on the front line will do an excellent job. So on behalf of all the residents that I represent in the town of Fort Erie, welcome. It's a great initiative, and it brings policing that much closer to the community level. And that's what it's all about. It's about building strong, healthy communities, and it's about listening to our residents. And I will add one small note, the broken window syndrome. Let's not let small issues turn into bigger problems. And although Fort Erie is a smaller community, I'd like to think we're one of the fastest growing communities. We have incredible amenities to offer, and with that growth comes the same challenges that other bigger communities are faced with. So having said that, let's not let the small issues turn into the bigger issues, and let's avoid that broken window syndrome. So again, thank you, Chairman Gale, thank you, board, and I'll stick around, and I'll certainly welcome any comments from the public. And I know Councillor Gale has always been very responsive. Staff Sergeant Kim McAllister has been very responsive to any requests that I've had. So I look forward to that great working relationship. Thank you.
So thank you for that. And Staff Sergeant McAllister, as I said, is making a presentation. If you have any questions, or Dean or anybody here has a question afterwards, all I care is it's respectful. Normally we don't allow that, but again, we don't come to Fort Erie very often, so thank you. So next is the State of the Region. On March 28th, the Regional Chair Caslin delivered his State of the Region address to the Niagara business community to highlight the accomplishments of Regional Council. The event was held at the Scotiabank Convention Center in Niagara Falls. All board members, Deputy Chiefs Flynn and Forty, and Superintendent Bench attended the event on behalf of the board and the service. Al, I'm going to ask you for some comments on this, but first I think I should identify the people of the board for anybody here in Fort Erie. We have Vaughn Stewart, a provincial appointee, a member at the end. Al Casson, Chair of the Niagara Region, second. Terry Bonham, citizen appointee from the region on the board. Dave Barrick, Chair of Corporate Services at the region, regional councillor to my left. Deb Reed, our executive director. Ken Ganzel, vice chair, provincial appointee. The Chief Brian McCulloch and Deputy Chief Forty, and behind Deputy Chief Forty is Deputy Chief Flynn. And I won't go on with identifying everybody else, no disrespect. Thank you. So Chair Caslin, if you don't mind saying about the State of the State of the Region.
Thank you, Chair Gale, and microphone's okay? Just want to thank everybody who attended the State of the Region. It was the fourth State of the Region for this term, and it was it gave me the ability to talk to the community about what we had accomplished over the past 3.5 years and what our goals were moving forward in the form of Shape Niagara. We have had a considerable amount of success over the past 3.5 years. I was able to talk about the fact that we were able to keep taxes increases below 1.5% over the entire 4-year term. We were able to get a commitment for GO Train all the way to Niagara Falls. We've been able to get a brand new manufacturing facility in Welland called General Electric, GE. We were able to pull the 3 municipalities together with their transit systems, that being Welland, St. Catharines, and Niagara Falls, to form, together with the region, to form what we call a consolidated transit model to not only service the communities, but also extend their services out to the balance of the Niagara region. So we have had a considerable amount of success this term. I'm proud to be part of that success, and I can give credit to the councillors around the horseshoe this term who have known the difference between reacting to a headline and what's really serious in our community and what work needs to be done. We've taken that to task, and we know together we are stronger, and we have shown that this term, that working together, rowing in the same direction, we can get so much more done, and we've done that. So I'm really proud to have been chair this term and to be part of that success and to be able to communicate that to the community. Now moving forward, our community is looking at what is going to happen next term. We've built the foundations, we built strong foundations this term. What are we going to do with that? And how are we going to take advantage of what we've done? We've created a program called Shape Niagara, and Councillor Gale, or Chair Gale, I'll just expand on that just a little bit. This is an opportunity for all of Niagara to have their input, to have their say into what Niagara is going to look like moving forward. Obviously, the next term of council will create their own strategic plan, but this will build a foundation for what the community is looking for in terms of what that strategic plan is going to look like. So I look forward to receiving the input through public communication sessions, online submissions, written submissions, and oral submissions as to what the community would like to see moving forward during the next term of government in Niagara. Thank you.
Member Caslin, thank you very much. Next, we have Indigenous Cultural Training. In an effort to strengthen the relationship between the board, police service, and the Indigenous community in Niagara, the Fort Erie Native Friendship Center, in partnership with the McLean Consulting Group, provided an Indigenous Cultural Training session on April 11th to the members of the Police Services Board and NRPS Senior Management Team. The goal of the session was to create a better understanding between mainstream society and Indigenous peoples. They keep putting that word in there every time. I have a problem pronouncing it. That's why you put it in there about 4 or 5 times. The training session was well received and very insightful. It deepened our understanding of historical, legal, social, and political circumstances of Indigenous peoples in Niagara and across Canada. Any opportunity for future participation is highly recommended. I'm going to go farther on this one. I've been in a lot of seminars since I've been elected, and a lot of them have been very good. This is the best seminar I was ever at. This was the one I looked at most pessimistically going into it, and I think we were all impressed by it. I know from talking to the chief, Vice Chair Ganzel, and Member Bonham, and that. There were so many things we learned on this, so I've expanded it farther. I won't go into depth on it, but I've met with the chair of the region, Al Caslin, and explained to him what went on here, and hopefully this type of seminar can go farther, because I was so impressed with what we learned. It even went so far as the chief, pardon me for stepping out of line if I am on this, Googling some of the facts that we learned there to make sure they were correct, and they were on this. There's a lot of knowledge we can get from the indigenous community that none of us knew. So, next, the NRPS swearing-in ceremony. Tonight, the service will be hosting a swearing-in ceremony to formally recognize 8 new recruits to the Niagara Regional Police Service. The ceremony will start at 7 p.m. in the community room at Police Headquarters in Niagara Falls. Vice Chair Ganzel, members Bonham, McKendrick, Stewart, and I will be attending on behalf of the board. By the way, the one lady that we're missing here from our board is Tara McKendrick. She's a new appointee from approximately 3 months ago, and we're very happy to be more diverse on having a lady on our board now. And Tara is also runs the CMHA, Canadian Mental Health Association in St. Catharines, so she's a real asset to come on our board. Next, the NRPS Auxiliary Recruit Graduation. On May 15th, the service is hosting a graduation ceremony for 14 new auxiliary recruits. At this ceremony, we will also recognize the promotion of 4 auxiliary officers, 1 to the rank of auxiliary staff sergeant, and 3 to the rank of auxiliary sergeant. The ceremony will start at 7 p.m. in the community room at Police Headquarters in Niagara Falls. Members planning to attend are asked to confirm with the board staff. Next, the NRPS retirement celebrations. Vice Chair Ganzel and Member Stewart will be representing the board at the retirement celebrations for Inspector Jim Prinzen and Mr. Jamie Saunders. Inspector Prinzen began his career with the Niagara Regional Police Service on January 29, 1986, and will be officially retiring from the position of Inspector of Detective Support effective May 1st, 2018, after a 32-year policing career with the Niagara Regional Police Service. His retirement is being held tomorrow from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Cat's Caboose in St. Catharines. Then Mr. Jamie Saunders began his career with the service on May 16, 1983, and he will be officially retiring from the position of Video Unit Manager effective June 1st, 2018, after a 35-year policing career. We've got a lot of credit for our video unit chief, and the chief knows as well, and so we're proud to have had Jamie on our service, and he's retiring. His retirement ceremony is being held on May 3rd at the Best Western Plus in Niagara Falls. On behalf of the board, I'd like to extend our gratitude and appreciation toward the dedication and professionalism of both Jim and Jamie, and offer each of them the board's best wishes for continued success, good health, and much happiness for many years to come. The OAPSB Zone 4 meeting, the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards, and the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police will be holding their Zone 4 quarterly meeting on May 1st at 8 a.m. The meeting is being hosted by the Woodstock Police Services Board at the Woodstock District Development Services Facility. Board members interested in attending are asked to confirm with board staff. Next, the cross-border tug-of-war competition. On May 12th, members of the Niagara Regional Police Service will be participating in the annual tug-of-war competition against Niagara's American law enforcement counterparts. This year takes on a new dynamic, and it commemorates the first time that the event will have a women's team, as well as a man's team, competing for a win. There will be a barbecue at 12 noon and an escorted march to the Rainbow Bridge by the Niagara Regional Police Pipe Band, where both competitions will take place beginning at 2 p.m. Board members planning to attend again are asked to confirm with board staff. Next, the Christian French Child Advocacy Center annual general meeting. On May 16th, the Christian French Child Advocacy Center will be holding its annual general meeting at its offices located at 8 Forster Street in St. Catharines. The event starts at 4:30 p.m. with a reception followed by their annual general meeting and partner presentations. Member Stewart will be attending the event on behalf of the board. Do you wish to comment on that now, or do you comment next month? Thank you. The NRPS Annual Awards Ceremony. On May 22nd, the Police Services Board, the Niagara Regional Police Service, and the Senior Officers Association will host its annual award ceremony at Club Italia in Niagara Falls. This important event recognizes outstanding service members and fellow citizens who have demonstrated excellence or made invaluable contributions to the Niagara community. The event also recognizes NRPS retirees and long-standing employees for their commitment to the service. Vice Chair Ganzel, members Bonham, McKendrick, Stewart, and the board's executive director, executive assistants, and I will be attending on behalf of the board. Again, the OAPSB 2018 Spring Conference and Annual General Meeting. The Ontario Association of Police Services Board, OAPSB, 2018 Spring Conference and Annual General Meeting will be taking place from May 23rd to 26th, 2018 at the Blue Mountain Resort. I won't miss the Regional Council meeting. I'll be coming back sooner for that. I won't go for the whole conference. Thank you. The theme of this year's conference is Implementing the New Police Services Act. The conference program will focus on educational sessions about the legislative changes as a result of Bill 175, the Safer Ontario Act, including an overview of Bill 175, the implementation, challenges, and potential solutions. There will also be a variety of networking opportunities. Vice Chair Ganzel, members McKendrick and Stewart, the board's executive director, and I will be attending on behalf of the board. I think I'm coming to my last one, the new board newsletter. Do you have a copy of it with you? And I didn't bring it either. So the board has developed a new spring 2018 edition of its newsletter called Community Connections, Connecting Niagara's Communities to the Police Board Governance. The board previously published newsletters from the years 2003 to 2015, and it has now reintroduced a semi-annual communication to further connect and reach out to the citizens and communities we serve. The board will work in partnership with Chief McCullough to provide facts and strategies to inform our residents of the activities of both the Police Services Board and the Niagara Regional Police Service. The newsletter can be accessed on our website at www.niagarapolice.ca and through our social media accounts on Facebook and on Twitter. This was also sent out to, I believe, every politician in the region, everybody could find yesterday morning, as well as I had some paper copies I distributed at the region for it, and I apologize for not having a paper copy here, but we'll make sure that the members have paper copies as well. I encourage everyone to take a look at the first edition and a new look at the Community Connections newsletter. We look forward to keeping our communities informed about board decisions, police governance, and many other topics of interest. And last, the upcoming PSB meetings. The next board committee meeting is scheduled to be held on Thursday, May 10th, and the regular monthly board meeting will be held on Thursday, May 31st. Both meetings will start at 8:30 a.m. and be held in the community room at Police Headquarters in Niagara Falls. So next, any declarations of conflict or pecuniary interest from anyone on the board? Minutes of the previous meeting, number 55. Can I have a mover and seconder, please, for that? Member Stewart, Member Bonham for seconder. All those in favor? Carried. Now a report from the Chief of Police.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would just like to echo your comments on behalf of the Niagara Regional Police Service. I'd like to extend thanks to Mayor Redikoff and to Council and to the staff here in Fort Erie for hosting us here this morning and for your gracious hospitality. I'd just also like to comment on Councilor Annunziato's earlier comments with regards to working with the community. I think many have heard me indicate this before. I truly believe that policing can only be effective if it's a partnership between the police service and the community. So we certainly welcome any feedback that the community here in Fort Erie or all of the communities in Niagara can provide us. Let us know what we're doing right. Let us know where things are happening in their neighborhoods, and we'll certainly be responsive and work with our community in that regard, whether it's something, as Mayor Redikoff indicated, as small but big issues with regards to speeding, or whether it's stop sign enforcement. I can assure you that we'll be responsive. So thank you for that. I just wanted to bring attention to some recent success that our 2-district street crime unit in Niagara Falls has had, just with regards to some exceptional work that they're conducting. They've been very successful in solving a number of property crimes and break-ins in the Niagara Falls area during the first quarter. I think it highlights as well the volume of work that they've been carrying. So for the first quarter of 2008, they have cleared 32 break and enter where charges have been laid. For all of 2017, there were 27. And for all of 2016, there were 19. So kudos to them and their great work. Stolen property, where charges have been laid, those are at 50. Comparatively, in 2017, there were 27. And with regards to other incidents such as thefts of bicycles, which we know in Niagara Falls has been a fairly hot topic. We've had 25 arrests so far in 2018 and comparatively 21 in 17 and 54 in 16. So in addition, the 2 District Street Crime Unit was responsible for arresting 3 suspects involved in a theft in progress at a jewelry store located on Queen Street in Niagara Falls on April the 10th. Members of the Street Crime Unit responded to a call to assist the uniform officers, and as a result, the Street Crime Unit members identified the location of the suspect vehicle that was used in the crime. They set up surveillance on the vehicle, and subsequently 3 suspects were arrested without incident when they returned to the vehicle. I just wanted to bring some attention as well to the board with regards to the NRPS, Niagara Health System Mental Health Apprehension Memorandum of Understanding. Rosa Tadeo, who's the Standards Development Officer with Policing Section of the Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services, will be making a recommendation to the Minister in conjunction with the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police Justice Committee to adopt the protocols that have been developed in Niagara between the Niagara Regional Police Service and the Niagara Health System with respect to mental health apprehensions as a provincial standard. The MOU, which is titled The Transport of Persons with Mental Health and Addiction Issues and Persons in Police Custody between the NRPS and NHS, serves as our protocol, and we've seen positive outcomes that have reduced wait times in hospitals here in Niagara by 57% for our officers. So that's a great news story and demonstrates our ability to collaborate and work with our community partners. Just with regards to marijuana grow operations, so far in 2018 we have $2.7 million worth of marijuana that's been seized. In 2018, as far as homicides are concerned, we had 1 homicide that occurred during the reporting period, which is from March 20th to April 23rd, which brings the number of homicides that we've had in 2018 to 2. Comparatively, in 2017 we had 3, in 2016 we had 1, and 2015 we had 6. So I hope the trend continues on the low side. We'll report to the board with regards to the homicide that occurred during the reporting period. So on Friday, April 13th at approximately 1:21 a.m., we responded to the area of Queenston Street near Church Street in the city of St. Catharines as a citizen had discovered an an injured male lying on the sidewalk. The male was treated at the scene by Niagara EMS, transported to the hospital. The male succumbed to his injuries at the hospital and his death was determined to be suspicious. The victim was identified as a 60-year-old Glenn Joseph Hewer of St. Catharines. The homicide unit commenced an investigation, and on Sunday, April 15th, some 2 days later, detectives arrested a male in relation to the investigation. 36-year-old Sean Fitzsimmons of St. Catharines has been charged with second-degree murder and is being held in custody. With respect to robberies in Niagara, in the month of March we had 10 robberies across Niagara. 2 of those robberies have been cleared. 6 of those are still ongoing, and 1 of those was deemed to be unfounded. So a 30% clearance rate at this point in time, and as I said, many of those are still under investigation. With regards to traffic fatalities, there were a total of 3 fatalities and 2 life-threatening motor vehicle collisions during the month of March. So our year-to-date statistics, the previous 2 months we had fortunately not had any traffic fatalities, so our fatalities are at 3, and we have had so far in 2018 4 life-threatening injury collisions that we have attended. I'll provide some details with respect to those. On Sunday, March the 4th, at approximately 3 a.m., officers responded to a report of a single motor vehicle collision on Glenridge Avenue near Winchwick Road in the city of St. Catharines. Investigation revealed that a 2008 Cadillac was being driven southbound on Glen Ridge Avenue by a 26-year-old St. Catharines male. Driver lost control of the vehicle, left the roadway, and struck a large tree in the front yard of a private residence. The driver suffered life-threatening injuries and was transported to a local hospital before being flown into an out-of-region hospital in critical condition. And on March 7th, the driver succumbed to his injuries. There's no charges pending from that incident. On Wednesday, March the 14th, at approximately 10:15 p.m., officers responded to a report of a two-vehicle collision on Pelham Road, west of 7th Street Louth in the city of St. Catharines. Investigation revealed that a 2006 Mazda 3 was being driven eastbound on Pelham Road when the 17-year-old St. Catharines male lost control of the vehicle, crossed into the westbound lane, and collided with a westbound 2017 Dodge Ram pickup truck that was being operated by a 52-year-old female from Lincoln. 4 occupants in the Mazda and 2 occupants in the Dodge. A 17-year-old female passenger in the Mazda was fatally injured in the collision. The driver and 1 other occupant suffered serious injuries and were transported to a local hospital before being taken to an out-of-town hospital. The 4th occupant suffered non-life-threatening injuries. The driver and passenger of the Dodge were taken to a local hospital with minor injuries, and the collision remains under investigation and charges are pending in that incident. On Sunday, March the 25th, at approximately 7 p.m., officers responded to a report of a motorcycle collision on 20 Road east of Silverdale Road in the town of Lincoln. Investigation revealed that a 1994 Honda motorcycle was being driven eastbound on 20 Mile Road by a 77-year-old resident of Thorold, who lost control of his motorcycle on a curb and left the roadway. The rider was thrown from the motorcycle and suffered life-threatening injuries. He was transported to a local hospital where he succumbed to his injuries, and there are no charges pending in that incident. And on Friday, March the 23rd, at approximately 10:10 p.m., a 33-year-old St. Catharines male was operating an off-road motorcycle northbound on the Merritt Trail in the city of St. Catharines. The area of the collision is a pedestrian trail which runs north and south east of Chestnut Street. There is a chain with a reflective sign hanging from it strung across the path to stop the use of motor vehicles traveling on the pathway. Investigation showed that the male rider was utilizing the path, and on this occasion he failed to observe the chain and he drove his motorcycle into it. He was thrown from the motorcycle. The rider was able to walk to a residence on Chestnut Street to get assistance. He suffered life-threatening injuries and was transported to a local hospital in critical condition, and charges are pending in relation to that incident. At approximately 2 p.m. on Saturday, March 31st, officers responded to reports of an all-terrain vehicle rollover on Stewart Road near Carlton Street in the town of Niagara Lake. Initial investigation revealed that a 20-year-old St. Catharines male was riding an Arctic Cat ATV northbound on Stewart Road when he lost control of the vehicle and the ATV rolled over. The rider suffered life-threatening injuries and was transported to a local hospital before being transported to an out-of-town hospital in critical condition, and charges are pending in that incident as well. Just some of the incidents in the news. Since February the 15th, 2018, investigators with our criminal investigation branch in 1 District St. Catharines have been conducting an investigation into an assault that occurred on Sunday, February the 4th, outside of Bill Burgoyne Memorial Arena in the city of St. Catharines. The circumstances surrounding these allegations involved the verbal abuse and then physical assault of a male referee who had been officiating a youth hockey game. As a result of the investigation, the 68-year-old male from St. Catharines was identified and has been charged. And we'd like to thank members of the public for their assistance in assisting our investigators in resolving that matter. Members of the Niagara Falls Street Crime Unit launched an investigation into a rash of coin vending machines that were being targeted at local businesses. During the thefts, the suspects would pry open the machines and remove money that was located inside them. Officers developed a suspect, and with the assistance of our forensic unit, subsequently arrested and charged a 28-year-old female and a 37-year-old male, both of Niagara Falls. Since January 26th, 2018, the 2-District Detective Office has been actively investigating an armed robbery that occurred at a residence in the city of Niagara Falls. And as a result of their investigation, 3 males were identified as suspects, while also revealing that one of the males was a suspect in a shooting that occurred at a residence in the city of St. Catharines on February the 24th. In total, we've laid 19 criminal charges in respect to this investigation that involved acts of violence and trafficking of various drugs in our communities. In 2018, members of the Welland Street Crime Unit commenced an investigation with the assistance of the RCMP into allegations that heroin and methamphetamine were being sold from homes in Colborne. On March 23rd, the investigation concluded with the execution of 2 Controlled Drugs and Substance Act search warrants and several arrests. Police seized a quantity of methamphetamine, heroin, dilaudid tablets, Percocets, and methadone. Various trafficking indicators were also seized, along with 3 prohibited weapons, and some cash was seized as well. On March 27th, members of our opioid enforcement unit concluded an investigation into drug trafficking in the town of West Lincoln. The investigation resulted in the seizure of fentanyl, morphine, oxycodone, cocaine, and crystal methamphetamine. The drugs seized had a total potential street value of almost $22,000. There was also some drug paraphernalia and some cash that were seized as well. A 42-year-old male was arrested and charged with various drug-related offenses, as well as failing to comply with a recognizance that he was released previously from court on. Since January of 2018, members of the St. Catharines Street Crime Unit have been investigating 2 males regarding their involvement in the sale of heroin and cocaine in St. Catharines. During the course of the investigation, police made observations that were consistent with an individual who was operating a drug trafficking operation from the residence and a vehicle. Members of our tactical unit, intelligence unit, and the street crime unit executed 3 search warrants on March the 29th at a Geneva Street apartment, at a business, and on a motor vehicle. During the entry into the apartment, police arrested 3 individuals for possession for the purpose of trafficking. 2 29-year-old males, along with a 25-year-old male, were arrested and charged with a warrant issued for an outstanding suspect. In total, we seized heroin, cocaine, marijuana with an estimated street value of $22,000, as well as almost $14,000 in currency was seized. Regarding a speeding offense, on Easter Sunday, members of the Niagara Regional Police were conducting speed enforcement in the city of Welland. At approximately 11:18 a.m., the vehicle was measured to be driving at approximately 145 kilometers an hour in a 60-kilometer zone. We advised the male was stopped. He was issued a speeding ticket for the offense of speeding 85 kilometers over the speed limit. He was charged with stunting. His license was suspended for 7 days, and his car was impounded also for 7 days. Not sure if he was rushing to church on Easter Sunday or what the reason for the speeding, but way too fast for that part of the city, that's for sure. On Friday, March 30th, 2 district uniform members of the Niagara Regional Police attended the casino area, or a casino area hotel for a violent assault and robbery. Investigation revealed that 2 females were violently assaulted and robbed after an agreed upon money exchange for services. The 2 females were transported to an area hospital for treatment of their injuries, and as a result of the investigation, 2 individuals were identified on April 7th and have been charged with assault and robbery. The investigation into a matter involving elder abuse was initiated by 1 district detectives in St. Catharines. in Thorold. Officers became involved in the investigation after a concerned citizen contacted police asking us to conduct a welfare check at the residence. When we entered the residence, they located a female in a state of unacceptable care and in an abandoned state. She was taken to a nearby hospital where she was provided medical attention. The female victim in this case is expected to make a full recovery. The male and female care providers have since been arrested. Starting in the month of April, members of the Street Crime Unit in St. Catharines started an investigation into persons involved in the sale of fentanyl and heroin from an address on Carlton Street, who were also conducting mobile deliveries from a vehicle. Over the course of the investigation, police observed the parties making suspected drug transactions, which resulted in the arrest of 3 persons involved in the execution of a search warrant. Also occurred the following day, seized a significant quantity of fentanyl powder, crack cocaine, and marijuana. We seized currency believed to be the proceeds of drug sales, and the fentanyl was observed to be tinted purple, consistent with other St. Catharines seizures of the fentanyl drug. In total, the street value was almost $15,000, and we seized cash totaling $2,300. And then in Grimsby, on April the 20th, at approximately 1:25 a.m., Grimsby uniform officers responded to the area of Bell Avenue and Park Road in Grimsby. The officers were there after reports from citizens regarding a suspicious male who was attempting to enter vehicles in the neighborhood. Responding officers located a youth sitting in front seat of a vehicle. Inside the vehicle were multiple pieces of identification and personal items not in the passenger's name. The young person identified that 2 additional males were in the vicinity on foot. K-9 unit and uniform officers canvassed the area but were unable to locate the outstanding parties at that time. Investigation revealed that the vehicle that the youth was seated inside had been stolen from a Grimsby residence nearby. The investigation into the presence of identification and personal items remains ongoing as we attempt to identify the victims of that merchandise. And I just want to highlight for members of the public with regards to vehicles that are broken into overnight. It does happen on a fairly regular basis. I would strongly encourage members to lock their vehicles. But more importantly, to report those incidents to us, because what often happens is that I think members feel guilty that they left their vehicle unlocked and they don't make us aware of the incident. We can't do our work and we can't use our crime analysts' skills to be able to assist our uniform officers in identifying where those incidents are occurring. In this case, that's exactly what was happening. And we alerted our officers to the area and we quickly were able to make an arrest, and as a result of that, 2 persons have been arrested and a 3rd person, there's a warrant that's been issued for that person's arrest. So a great collaboration between the community and the police and resulted in some great police work. That's all I have for the public portion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Anybody have any questions of the Chief on his report? I see none. Okay, thank you very much for that, Chief. One person I'd like to identify in here, Mayor Redicott and Councillor Annunziata, is Ryan McGuire in the first row. Comes to every one of our meetings from day one. And you're from Stevensville, aren't you, Ryan? Fort Erie. So this was the first time it was a short trip for you?
Yes.
So Ryan has come to every one of our meetings since day one. Have you ever missed one, Ryan? No? Okay. Well, I just wanted to identify you because you're a citizen of these gentlemen. So thank you for coming again.
Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to have a presentation by Staff Sergeant Kim McAllister. Kim, if you don't mind coming to the podium, it's item number 56. After that, and for the benefit of Citizen Nancy Sears who showed up, she has a question. We're going to allow questions of you, Staff Sergeant McAllister, if you don't mind, but I'll only allow a question, no debate. So, and again, if you don't have the answer, we're not asking for the wrong answer quickly. I'm going to give an answer slowly if we have to, in that way. So, and we did this in Smithville, and we've slackened off our rules a little bit there. So if you ever feel you're on the spot, please don't hesitate to say, I'll get back to you on something like this. You have the show.
Perfect, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to allow me to speak here today. So through you, Mr. Chair, good morning. For those of you who may not know me, I am Staff Sergeant Kim McAllister, the District Commander for 5 District 4 Erie, where I've held the position since November of 2017. I report to Inspector McCaffrey, who in turn reports directly to Superintendent White, who oversees district operations for the region. The Fort Erie, Stevensville, Ridgeway, Crystal Beach communities are known as 5 District, and we are comprised of a contingent of frontline officers, detectives from our criminal investigative branch, and administrative support staff. The 5 District office itself is open from Monday to Friday, a.m. to 4 p.m. I love getting my picture taken. Officers in 5 District respond to a wide variety of calls for service, from routine to high priority response. Frontline officers are also involved in proactive initiatives to address concerns specific to the town of Fort Erie, which are often identified by our local residents or community partners. On the subject of community partners, I'm very pleased to report excuse me, that the NRPS has an extremely positive relationship with the Mayor's Office, Town of Fort Erie staff, as well as various other community partners. Calls for service involve complaints of criminal as well as non-criminal behavior. This can include responding to incidents such as domestic violence, mental health interventions, noise complaints, trespassing, and providing assistance to various agencies such as municipal bylaw, fire services, as well as the CBSA. Detectives assigned to the 5 District Criminal Investigations Branch are responsible for furthering investigations and assisting members of 5 District as the need arises. The 5 District Criminal Investigations Branch also shares the support of a crime analyst position currently working out of headquarters. A crime analyst can monitor for trends or anomalies and will also liaise with neighboring services on a regular basis. In the smaller districts, such as 5 District, our Criminal Investigations Branch performs a dual role. They are responsible for investigating general assignments such as sudden deaths or robberies. They also perform a street crime function with a mandate to investigate property crimes, including break-and-enter thefts, thefts of vehicles, as well as drug investigations. Although the unit is relatively small, they are consistently busy. In 2017, the Criminal Investigations Branch was responsible for 512 investigations with 25 arrests and 114 criminal charges being laid. 5 District also has the benefit of utilizing the service's specialty units within the Niagara Regional Police Service when required. These units include, but are not limited to, school resource officers, the Marine Unit, Homicide Unit, Investigative Support Services Unit, Forensics Unit, Collision Reconstruction, Traffic Enforcement, K-9, including our chaplains, and Auxiliary Unit. Each unit within itself has a multitude of resources and equipment available to assist the members of 5 District should the need arise. Members of 5 District are involved in a large number of community-related events, including but not limited to Police Week, where local grade school students attended 5 District for tours and interaction with officers and equipment from our various units. We also assist with COPE, which is a community outreach program in Fort Erie, and that's a food drive. Salvation Army Christmas Toy Drive in conjunction with the Lions Club. Special Olympics events, including the annual Law Enforcement Torch Run, the Santa Claus Parade, which I got to participate in for the first time, the Ridgeway Summer Festival, bike safety, and also in conjunction with the Friendship Center, as well as other events that officers undertake, such as coaching, mentoring on their own time. Each of these interactions gives the community a better understanding of the police outside of an enforcement capacity and assists in building stronger relationships. As previously stated, being the district commander, I have observed firsthand the strong working relationship between the police and our community partners. A prime example is the partnership between the Niagara Regional Police Service and the town of Fort Erie in combating motor vehicle complaints. The NRPS is a partner in the town's Traffic Advisory Committee and share resources and information to provide education and directed enforcement. As district commander, I provide a conduit for information flow between officers on patrol and the community to ensure that concerns are brought forward by individual citizens, citizen committees, and all levels of government are identified and appropriate police response is generated. Such concerns include, but are not limited to, noise complaints, off-road motor vehicle complaints, requests for targeted enforcement, etc. In each circumstance, information is provided to officers on patrol and a proper response is formulated, which can include extra patrols or extra enforcement efforts. As previously stated, members of 5 District often direct our resources, taking into account complaints from local residents and our community partners. We will often partake in an initiative aimed at tackling a particular problem. Recent examples are ATV Patrol, an initiative which had officers committed to education and enforcement of off-road motor vehicle and snow vehicle infractions, trespassing, and any other prohibited activity on town and private business property. Cottage checks. This is an initiative which runs all winter. Officers are deployed on ATVs and check on seasonal properties which are vacant during winter months. The properties are checked to ensure that they are secure and not subject to break-ins, vandalism, or squatting. A tag is placed at the property to advise that police have attended and ensured it is secure. And I can just bring this to you, Chair. This is an example of what we will deliver to the property.
Thank you very much. Pass that down.
Another initiative is targeted highway traffic enforcement, which included seatbelt offenses, stop sign infractions, speeding in rural areas and school zones, as well as distracted driving. These initiatives over the past 12 months resulted in a combination of 3,061 provincial offense notices and education warnings being issued. Beach Day is a big initiative for us that happens every year. We pool resources with 6 districts to patrol and engage with local high school students who have taken the day off school to attend this annual, however unsanctioned, event. It's my understanding through Inspector Forbes that there was approximately 4,000 students that attended the 40 Beach last year. So it's a lot for us to deal with. And liquor license checks. Recently we conducted checks at 16 local liquor license establishments in conjunction with the AGCO to ensure compliance and confirm that alcohol is being served responsibly. 5 district officers also conduct complaint-based enforcement. These can come from members of the town of Fort Erie, community partners, or individual citizens and include, but are not limited to, speeding, stop signs, noise complaints, dangerous driving, and drug trafficking. In each instance, an officer is usually assigned to investigate and provide an appropriate response. Members of 5 District are very aware of the changing population levels in the community based on the time of year. The town has a population of approximately 30,000 full-time residents. However, this number increases during the summer months as many seasonal property owners return to the community. They also bring family and friends with them. This population increase can include increased traffic complaints and an increase in calls for service. In each instance, our members continue to meet these challenges and welcome the positive growth as our community continues to flourish and prosper. In closing, I would like to say that I have full confidence in the members of 5 District to provide professional and effective policing to the community in which we serve, and I thank you for your opportunity to speak this morning.
Staff Sergeant McAllister, thank you very much. We have questions from the board and the citizens, but I've got a person in the audience that has to leave right away, and he would, Bill Brown, come on up here, Bill, please. He's from Fort Erie, so he's a citizen up here, so he has more power than anybody. Please, come up to the mic. So, I have a note here saying you were just here, you were a member of the board back in, what year were you on the board?
I think I left the board in 2005 as vice chair.
And you're here to make sure things are going right.
Well, I'm here just to see if there's anybody I know. Behind Deb.
You remember Deb?
I do remember Deb. I was on the board when Deb came on board. And I'm kind of disappointed. I would have liked to have seen more people from the town of Fort Erie come out and see the board in action.
We agree with you, but we've been to a lot of cities. We've had somewhat full crowd and we've had empty crowds. I won't say which cities. So, it is what it is.
It's an opportunity to see the board in your own community, and I'm surprised there are not more people here. And I know that you go through some effort to do this because this takes you off your normal schedule. Anyway, I don't have anything more to say other than the fact that it was an honor to serve on the board. I learned a great deal. I made some good friendships, and it gave me an opportunity to see the relationship between the police service and the public. So anyway, all the best in the future to you.
I know you have to leave, but I wanted to get you up there to say hi, so thank you. Well, it said here that you had to leave on an appointment. Is that correct?
I have an appointment to see my eye doctor, and although I still see well enough to recognize people, I guess they're concerned that something might be going on.
Okay, thank you very much for coming out.
Okay, thank you very much.
Staff Sergeant McAllister, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I
Quite all
want to
right.
get him up there. Does anybody on the board have any questions of Staff Sergeant McAllister? Vice Chair Gallon,
Staff Sergeant, I want to commend you on the team that you probably have employed getting these out.
Yes.
I think this is an excellent idea. I think collecting the information for contacting somebody in a residence who's not normally in it, so the police can assist in investigations and other matters that may be occurring with that property or property adjacent. I think this is an excellent idea, and I commend you and this continues to move forward.
It's a very proactive initiative, and we receive tremendous positive feedback. A lot of our seasonal property owners live well outside of the community. So I had a call, I think 2 weeks ago, from a gentleman from Toronto that had come down on the weekend to check on his property and found the tag. He couldn't believe that the service would take the time to ensure that his property was safe and looked after, and it's just something we do all the time.
I think it also goes to the depth of the Niagara Regional Police Service and how we serve our community and where we focus our resources. Crime prevention, property crime prevention is a very important part of what we do. It's usually good to be ahead of the matter than behind it.
Try.
Proactive approach. So again, I commend you on what you're doing here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So Staff Sergeant, I'd like you just to give us a little resume about yourself, your history on the police force, and then I'm going to ask the Chief if he has any comments of Fort Erie, and then we'll open it up to questions. So, oh, I'm sorry, Al? Oh, Member Castleman, go ahead first, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to get a little more information from you about the infrastructure and the service in Fort Erie. I'm relatively new to the board, the newest member that's sitting here, that's for sure. Where is the police detachment located in Fort Erie?
650 Gilmore Road.
And is it a full-time staff facility?
No, it's not. As a staff sergeant, I work a straight day shift, so I'm there Monday to Friday, 8 until 4, and we're open during those business hours. When we're closed, and a member of the public comes to the police station, there's a notification on the door that lets them know that the actual office is closed, and it directs them to a telephone where they can be in instant contact with communications and have an officer come and meet them, either there or back at their home.
So for the benefit of myself as well as the community, could you tell me a little bit about what the number of officers that are stationed here and the resources that are available to you from the neighboring communities perhaps? How does it operate?
Well, in terms of other resources, we work quite closely with Port Colborne, whether it's addressing something like Beach Day, where we're going to redeploy, and we've figured out that the kids aren't going to Port Colborne this year, they're coming to Fort Erie. So we'll grab a couple of extra officers from Port Colborne. They also have ATVs, so we're able to team up together as we patrol things like the Friendship Trail, situations like that. In terms of staffing numbers, Chief, if you could just direct me what's appropriate to share.
I think you can let them know about the authorized.
Okay, so we have 4 platoons. We have 8 constables on each platoon. That's our assigned number. We're not always at our authorized strength, but that's what we're authorized for, and 1 sergeant. And CIB has 4 full-time detectives and 1 detective sergeant. Then you have myself, and we have 1 district administrative support person. She's phenomenal.
Thank you. So through you, Mr. Chair, you're adjacent to two other services, that being CVSA
Yes.
and also the Niagara Parks Police. How do you, what is the interaction between those forces? How do you make sure that we're not duplicating efforts, but yet we're handshaking where necessary?
We have a really good working relationship. So a recent example in working with the Parks Police was there was a member of the public that had reported there was what they believed to be blood on a wall down in the parks. It was a Parks Police call. We were monitoring, and our duty inspector that particular day wanted us to respond to see if there was anything that we could do to assist. And it turned out it was guys that were fishing and not their bait.
So how do you keep a relationship? Do you have ongoing discussion? Do you have regular meetings? How do you do that?
With CVSA, we have a working protocol with them, and there was just a recent meeting to fine-tune how we're processing, in particularly impaired arrests at the border, and we do get a significant number of those. It's generally out-of-town citizens who have come from Niagara Falls and have lost their way, and they think they're Toronto-bound, and they're not, and they end up at the bridge and they're apprehended, so we work closely in those situations with them.
So just talk about the lake service for a moment, because I know this is on a lake as well as a river.
Yes.
And you know, I know that we have a brand new boat, and we were taken out in the boat, and the chief made sure it was the roughest day possible on Lake Ontario. And Chair Gale made me sit on the outside of the boat, so I got absolutely soaked, dressed in my suit. So how do you deal with it on Lake Erie?
I don't have a lot of information that I can share about our marine unit. I haven't really had that opportunity. I've only been in Fort Erie since November, so we haven't typically had our boats out there, but that's going to be a big learning curve for me as we get into the nicer weather.
Fabulous. And I guess that would be the same with the CVSA. I guess it's Coast Guard, U.S. Coast Guard, that would patrol the river. I'm not sure.
Through you, Mr. Chair, would be the U.S. Coast Guard as well. And our Marine unit, I think, will be liaising very regularly with Staff Sergeant McAllister. I think what will be important going forward is the collaboration with the community and information coming forward to Kim. That information will get exchanged to our Marine unit, and they'll respond accordingly and hit those troubled areas where they need to be.
Thank you. You know, oftentimes we hear from the community that just because they don't see a police car everywhere they look, that they're not getting service well. But you know, through what you've told me so far, I think the community can rest assured that we are servicing the community well, and we have the infrastructure in place to not only the land but also the water. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I think overall we're doing well, but I mean, there's always room for improvement, and we just had a recent phone call from my Superintendent Cindy White, and she just echoed to myself and actually to all the district commanders that promoting the chief's message of community engagement and her expectations for daily foot and bike patrols. And I'll certainly be participating in that myself. So we'd be in areas such as Bridgeburg, on Jarvis Street, and in downtown Ridgeway, and perhaps at some of our community centers.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board? Chief, I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Could you please identify the people behind us? You mentioned the Superintendent Cindy White, but would you mind identifying the people behind us? Because the people watching this on video later will wonder who people report to, if you could. Thanks.
Sure. So through you, Mr. Chair, to directly across from me and directly behind Member Caslin is Superintendent Cindy White. Cindy oversees all of our district operations. So
can you stand up, please, when he identifies you, if you don't mind? Thanks.
So that's all of our uniform officers that would report to Staff Sergeant McAllister, and all of the districts across the entire region are under Cindy, and that includes our detective offices as well. So big portfolio. Cindy does a great job. Beside Cindy is Superintendent Brian Ash. So Brian oversees our investigative support and emergency services. So that's all of our specialized investigative units from across the services. So that's our homicide, special victims, which is sexual assault, child abuse, domestic violence unit, our forensic services unit, fraud, all of those investigative units that aren't in the detachments or in the divisions, but are on a regional basis, and also oversees all of our emergency services, so our tactical canine explosive disposal unit. Yeah, you can sit down, Brian, thanks. And our marine unit, so that falls under Brian as well. So and traffic enforcement unit as well falls under Brian. Beside Brian is Superintendent George Bench. George oversees executive services, so he's responsible for our professional standards unit, training unit, and our planning and research areas of the service, audit, and I think recruiting falls under George as well. So I think that and training unit. Sorry, if I didn't cover training unit, that covers George's area. Another busy area of the service, Akram School, who's our director of IT. So he makes sure that all of the computers and all of the data that we rely upon now to be able to provide those evidence-based decisions and whatnot. It's a big portfolio, and we thank Akram for his work in that regard. Ms. Laura Rulo is our finance manager. She makes sure that we're spending money appropriately and keeps us in sync in that regard. Ms. DiDonato DeCellis, Lisa oversees, she's the Director of Business Services, so human resources, fleet, basically all of the civilianized functions within the service, so HR, finance as well. Am I missing it? Oh, and records, yes, all of our records staff as well. And we have James Mackay. James is the acting superintendent that oversees support services. Richard Frayne is normally in that role, but Richard's on vacation this week. So that is all of our court services staff. We have about 100 members that work in the courts to keep that machine rolling. So we thank Jim for that, and also our communications unit, which falls under Jim, and evidence management and property management. That's pretty much it. Okay, and then Deputy Flynn, which you've already referenced.
And last but not least, Deputy 40, right beside you as well, and Marco, if you don't mind identifying him.
And Marco Gianico, who's in the audience, he's my executive officer, so if there's anybody has a concern, then they call up to the chief's office. They'll likely, the point of contact will be Marco, and he'll follow up and brief me on whatever I need to be briefed on, and does a great job for me in that regard. Paul Divers, who's our corporate analyst, does a lot of work in doing our annual reports, our business plan, and different grant applications and whatnot. So we thank Paul for that. And Josie, Sergeant Josie Hollingshead, who's the executive officer to Deputy Chief Flynn. And I think that's got it covered.
Thank you very much. You did a fine job there. Staff Sergeant McAllister, just a brief resume of yourself on the police history.
Sure. In July, I will complete 25 years of service, so I'm old. I was hired in 1990, actually with Deputy Chief Flynn. We went to OPC together. Had a very fortunate career, loved policing, mostly detective work, kind of worked my way up. Lots of investigative roles, was promoted to sergeant, worked in courts, worked in professional standards, was an executive officer to Deputy Chief Matthews, promoted to staff sergeant, worked in special victims for 3 years, and now 5 district.
Thank you very much. So our chief and the 2 deputy chiefs are really on side, and there are superstars, for lack of better words, on community relations and things like this. We go out of our way to answer questions of the community, and I don't know how to explain it better than that. In this case here, we go out of our way when we come to different town halls to allow questions from people around. But I'm going to start with Mayor Redicott. Do you have any questions of Staff Sergeant? You can always ask questions anytime, Wayne, but would you like to ask any questions at all?
I have no questions, just to compliment. We have excellent relations with the local police detachment. Staff Sergeant McAllister has been very responsive. She's attended a number of meetings here involving members of the community, that's been typical. We have had very good service from the Niagara Regional Police Service here in Fort Erie, and each and every one of Staff Sergeant McAllister's predecessors has been equally responsive. So we're quite pleased about that. We do have some issues, and whenever they arise, we take them up with her. As she's indicated, they're part of some of the committees here locally, and they do reach out to members of our community. So thank you very much, and congratulations for being so successful.
Thank you, Your Worship.
And this is such a beautiful development here, with the new high school across the street and this building here. The only question I have is that picture back there was from when you were mayor first. Do you get another picture on the wall later?
That was the less wise, more handsome version of me. There is another photo, but I prefer to keep it under wraps.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Annunziata, you are here on behalf of the region. You're a regional councillor. We ask you for money with the other 29 people on there. So do you have any questions at all?
We have excellent relationships with our uniformed policemen. Staff Sergeant McAllister has been very responsive to any concern or question I got for it on behalf of the community partners, council. So far so good. As always, it's an open door policy, and if there's any issues, I have no concerns that they'll be addressed in a very timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dean DiMizio, do you have any questions at all?
I have a comment from my...
Would you like to come to the mic?
Sure.
You won't be on, I don't think the cameras go back there, do they?
Thank you.
I'm helping you here.
Thank you, Chair.
And I know you were on the Chamber of Commerce, you were president of the Chamber of Commerce in Fort Erie, and you're from Niagara Falls, because I knew you back then, so please.
I'm just going to put on my insurance agent hat. I've been insurance agent in the area for 24 years now, and I compliment your efforts with the seasonal inspections, because I can tell you from my experience, in terms of claims, I've seen less claims as time goes on. So I compliment the police services for taking the initiative to check out these seasonal homes, because they're vulnerable in the wintertime. People that are looking for an easy target know to hit them. So my hat goes off to you, and please continue, because as I said, I've got 24 years track record in insurance, and I've seen the claims for theft and burglary and whatnot in that area, at least for my business, go down. So thank you, my hat goes off to you.
Thanks for the great feedback, and I'll make sure that gets back to the guys and girls doing the work.
All right, thank you again.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to invite Nancy Sears up to the microphone. Nancy has a question. Nancy, if you don't mind asking the question through me to the staff, no, please come up to the microphone here if you don't mind. If you have a question on, well, I'll let you explain it. The only thing is I don't get into a debate here. Please ask your question, and we'll always get back if we don't have the answer. But please, go ahead.
It's not a debate, and answering Mr. Brunt's question there, I only saw this 15 minutes before I arrived that you were to be here. I threw on my clothes as fast as I could. I have a very busy day.
Just let you know, really... Councillor Annunziata, I know, has announced it at Fort Erie Town Council meeting for months.
I found out through Diana Kelly posting it,
okay.
And I saw it on Facebook. So anyways, here I am, because this will be the largest audience I've ever had for this issue. I live on the Parkway in Fort Erie, and my problem is snowmobiles, or snow machines, whatever they're addressed or called. Myself, I instituted through, thank you to Stephen Pissarro, to get a bylaw put in place, because apparently there was no bylaw to prevent them from using public sidewalks. And I thought, this is rather bizarre. This is for pedestrians, not motorized vehicles. But because they didn't have one on record, they couldn't do anything about it then. So it took 9 months, and his persistence got through a bylaw. They're not allowed on public walkways. So for the past 6 years, it has not stopped. What first presented itself was one almost ran down my granddaughter. She was 5. She hadn't made it to the sidewalk. I screamed for her to stop, and she did, thank God. The fellow operating it accelerated because I think he panicked and wasn't sure what to do, seeing her coming towards the sidewalk. The next incident after the bylaw was instituted, my 1-year-old granddaughter was going to go out on a sleigh ride with her grandma for the first time. And out on the sidewalk I went, and along came a snowmobile behind us that persisted in staying behind us till he got to the next roundabout to get up. He didn't want to go off the street, to go around us. My picture was in the paper with that, with her in the sleigh. It was brought to the public's attention. The problem still persists. This past year, when I was shoveling the sidewalk in front of my house, so I'm very community-minded, people who use it, a lot of older people, a lot of people walking past. There's constant traffic on this sidewalk in front of my house. A snowmobile accelerated towards me, seemed like he wanted to hit me, and went around me at the last minute. I have been in contact with you to try to stem this. But even last year, on a given day when there's a good snowpack, they persist on using this as a personal highway. 50 can go past my house in one day. That's a lot of motorized vehicles. The officers who tend my house said law prevents them from doing anything more than what they're doing. That they don't have the proper means, maybe, to track them down. And by the time I call, let's face it, they're long gone. By the time the police attend, they're on a motorized vehicle. They're long on their way. How would they catch them? So I was hoping, I hear in Welland they have ATVs that go on the pathways there to prevent traffic that shouldn't be there. We have special patrols at schools to prevent people from passing school buses. Why can I not, after 6 or more years, get the traffic of motorized snowmobiles? Do I have to wait till someone gets hurt or killed? To stem the tide of these vehicles on public walkways. That is what I want to address you here about.
Thank you very much for that. Staff Sergeant McCallum, did you want to, I'm sorry, my customer. Did you want to address that now, or do you want to meet with her? She's already talked to you. Or Chief, do you want to comment on what route this should go?
It has been suggested not only by her, but other people. I've spoken to so many people over the years that officers change, that maybe they could come up with a program when snow starts or after we have a good snow to address this by having a certain amount of officers, special patrol, I don't want people to get arrested. I go snowmobiling, but I go where it's authorized. Is to address this subject to the snowmobilers. Do they not know? They can't drive on the public sidewalk.
Okay.
And stop them and say, you're not allowed to do this, I don't want them to get arrested or get tickets. Just maybe address this problem to slow it down, because really, I've gotten so, I don't let the grandchildren out without me, and we try to stay away from the sidewalks when there's snow on it, and that's not right. That's where we belong. That's where my grandchildren think they can go.
Okay. Staff Sergeant McAllister, I'm going to ask you through your officers or the Chief's office to come up for a solution list or some ideas and keep us in the loop on this. I'm not asking to put you on the spot right now on this, unless you want to comment on it.
I can't speak to some patrols that we had this year, and I fully appreciate where Ms. Sears is coming from. I know that it's frustrating for our officers. It was a fairly significant issue that we dealt with, considering the harsh winter. There was lots of snow, which provided lots of opportunities for snow vehicles to be out there. One of the initiatives that I spoke about with the ATV patrols, whether it was on Friendship Festival or on other private properties, that had complained to us about snowmobiles accessing one was a golf course. So we did our best to get out there with the resources that we had. We didn't always have the opportunity to deploy ATVs, given our staffing numbers. That has an impact on what we're able to do on any given day. But it's something that we'll continue to run every winter in Fort Erie. I have a Twitter account. I try to put out information to the public on a daily basis. I did post information this year about snowmobiles and where you're allowed to operate legally and the requirements. I can work with our media, corporate communications, for an increased presence next year. And again, we'll continue to run our patrols.
Okay, so I'm going to handle this like it was a complaint to the board coming through to me.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask for me to be kept in the loop on what goes on here, or any of the board members here as well.
Absolutely.
So if you can discuss with the chief or his office down the way on how to solve this, because I guess it's gone on for 6 years, you said? That? So you brought it to our attention. I thank you very much on this. So,
thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for all your help already.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you. So keep me in the loop on a response, but remember, Bob, do you have a question on this?
No, I just have a comment. A lot of snowmobilers run in clubs, And I don't know if there's snowmobile clubs in the Niagara district or not. I'm assuming that they are. I'm just wondering if we're active with regard to getting this information out through them to their members or anything to that effect. If we're not, and we haven't considered that, maybe that's something that could be done. They like to run in packs and have social events, not quite beach days, but snow days, as you know. And if there are clubs that we could be using as a communication tool, then I would suggest that might want to be done. Just for your consideration, thank you.
Certainly look into that, that's a great suggestion.
So we will get back to you. Before you leave here, get my email address, if you don't mind, because we always get back to you. You might not like what we say, you might like what we say, but we always get back to you. Okay?
Well, like
So,
I said, this is my biggest audience.
the chief has a comment as well. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you very much, Ms. Sears, for bringing the concerns to our attention. I think one of the other important partners in this is the bylaw enforcement unit with the town of Fort Erie. We'll work hand in hand through Staff Sergeant McAllister, through our corporate communications, get the word out with regards to what's appropriate, what's not appropriate use of snow machines. And again, hopefully we can see more positive results if you come back to town council and we're here next year and you have a good news story as opposed to the news that you provided today. So we'll definitely work on that.
Don, would you mind giving her my regional address, email address, if you don't mind, thanks. Any other questions for Staff Sergeant McAllister or any comments about Fort Erie policing from anybody in this room? Staff Sergeant McAllister, thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. I'd just like to extend an open invitation to any board member that appears to come and visit us in Fort Erie and check out our station.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I have a mover and seconder to receive this, please? Member Vice Chair Ganzel, Member Bonham, all those in favor? Carried. Next, we have the consent agenda items. I'd like to move them in block as I normally do, please. Items 57 to 70, and then we'll take questions on all those. Can I have a mover and seconder to open this up? Member Bonham, Member Stewart. Who wants to start off with questions? Does anyone want to start off with questions? Vice Chair Ganzel.
We're up, number 70 is the last one in the consent, right? So this is number 70. This deals with the crisis negotiation component. I note on page 4 of it, we have increased, basically back in 2014 of 7, we're now up to, actually in 2016 we hit 21. Excuse me, we're at 18 this year. What stands out in this is 8 of the 18 are, quote, person in crisis. You'll see that marked in the report, either a barricaded person or a barricaded arm, space, person in crisis, etc. What's on? I wonder if the service could shed some light on the mental health programs we have within the Niagara region, and is there any way of trying to get out in front of the issue? We're responding to, you know, I see one here about the waterway at Sir Adam Beck, and if I remember, I think Guy unit and another unit, I think, was deployed on that one. But is there a way of somehow getting into the community ahead of the issue to see if some of this can be sort of cut off at the pass, so to speak?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think we've highlighted before with regards to our MCERT programs, or Mobile Crisis Rapid Response Teams. So that's probably more of a reactive situation to a call where somebody is in crisis. But with respect to proactive, we have a great partnership with the Canadian Mental Health Association, and they have the Distress Center. So that is an option, I think, for people who are in crisis, and I know a lot of people in crisis do call the Distress Center seeking help. You know, a lot of the incidents that we respond to in this type of scenario are really, they're emotionally charged situations. Oftentimes there's alcohol, there's drugs involved, coupled with somebody going through a very traumatic or emotionally troubled period in their life, may not be taking their medications, maybe over-medicating as well. So there's a lot of factors that play into it. So I think with regards to, it's a sign of the changing times that we're facing here in Niagara and really right across Ontario and all across Canada and the US. So I think for people out there who are having difficulties, I think there's, what's important to know is that there is help out there, whether it's through the crisis lines or just seeking out assistance. There's lots of organizations that can assist in that regard with mental health.
Okay, thank you very much for that update.
Anyone else have any questions on item 70? Do you have any others? Does anyone else have any others? Okay, I have a few here. Chief, on item 58, which is the quarterly report back university, this is just a quick one. How many arrests or what reflects in this graph on there is with regards to St. Patrick's Day? The property-related crimes? Or do you have any idea on that, or would you? No. I just wonder how much St. Patrick's Day costs to them on some of this. Would you have anything in relation to that?
I don't have any information on that, but we can certainly reach out to Brock University.
Not a big thing because it's expensive. As long as it's easy to do, I'd appreciate it, because I just wonder if this chart would be anywhere near 157 on property-related crimes if we didn't have a St. Patrick's Day problem. But, okay, thank you for that. Then on item 60, the annual report on hate bias. Sometimes on these reports we have complaints, how many complaints we've had in the last year, but there's none there. So I take it there has been no complaints on the hate bias motivated crimes and hate propaganda offenses. There's been no crimes reported on that?
There has been. I can get you an updated, Superintendent Ash, I think, may have some of the recent numbers that we have for.
Thank you, I appreciate
our
that.
report.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chief. Through you, Chair. In 2017, we had 24 incidents that would be considered under this general order, or I'm sorry, this report. I can advise that in 19 of those cases, they were a graffiti-based mischief type of event, not necessarily specifically targeting any one person, however, in a nature which is does have a bias to it. We did have one charge that was laid in relation to this, but it wasn't actually charged under the hate crime legislation. But in total, there were 24, and it was a variety of different groups that were targeted in those.
And thank you for that. Again, it's 24 too many when there's any on something like that. But and you stop me if I'm going too far with my question, please. Out of the 24, how many would be related to the same person or group doing a crime? Like, there's not 24 different people doing this or 24 different groups. Have I gone too far with that question? Or?
Well, I think in many cases it's somebody, an unknown person has perhaps spray painted a swastika on a bridge overpass or something along those lines. So it's hard to identify how many persons would be responsible for the various hate crimes. But all of those that are at least reported to us, we track those through our intel unit, and we have a good relationship with our various community partners as well to make them aware and they can respond accordingly.
Okay, thank you for that. Does anybody else have any other comments on item 60? Okay, I'll move on then to item number 65. This one with sexual assault investigations. I remember distinctly when Member Castleton brought it up about a Globe and Mail article, I'll say it was a year ago. And again, all police forces in Ontario or Canada shaped up, for lack of better words, on this because of the criticism from that. I would take it for granted on that chart, and I don't have it open in front of me right now, that we are investigating things to the fullest. I'm trying to choose my words right on this, that nothing comes back on us, and we're doing the proper thing for our citizens.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So as highlighted on page 5 of the report, it talks about a new definition that has been worked on with regards to classifying incidents as unfounded. So we're adhering to that new definition. As well, we have a sexual assault committee that has been established. It's sort of a cross-section of members of the community to ensure that the broader community is represented, and that we are investigating matters to the fullest extent possible, as well ensuring that we hear their feedback and their input, and if there's any suggestions or policy changes that need to come as a result of those discussions, we implement those as well. Again, wanting to make sure that we want members who have been sexually assaulted to come forward, and the challenge is that in many of those cases, it becomes one person's word against another person's word unless there's other corroborating evidence. But what we want members of the public to know is that just because it's one person's word against another person's word, it doesn't mean that we don't believe that the offense didn't occur. So we want people to come forward, and we certainly don't. We want fewer incidents to be occurring, but the reality is that when people do come forward, we will investigate it to the fullest.
So thank you for that. My point of asking that question was exactly what I wanted to hear from you on that, so thank you for bringing that out. Anyone else have any comments on that item? Okay, moving on to item number 66, which is the vehicle thefts. I remember us, the last chief and I, and possibly you were there meeting with Great Wolf Lodge and other places about vehicle thefts and that. Yet I see there's a few more cars being stolen this year and that. Are they still targeting the casino and hotel area as much in Niagara Falls, or is it spread out through the region pretty well, or can you tell me what you can?
Through you, Mr. Chair, certainly Niagara Falls is an area that is targeted, just given the number of tourists and the different hotels that we have in the large parking lots that are situated in Niagara Falls. Certainly provides a crime of opportunity for those who are engaged in that type of activity. So through Inspector McCaffrey, we really try to educate the hotel owners and make them aware of what they should be looking for. We encourage the use of CCTV cameras and monitoring to assist in identifying any suspicious activities that are taking place in those hotel parking lots.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any comments on that one? My last one is item number 69. I mentioned before about the public order units and that. If you don't mind just explaining that about the sharing or the other services and that, a high level of what that's about, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, certainly. So with regards to the public order units, under the adequacy standards, we're required to have access to a public order unit. We have chosen to not have our own public order unit and instead have a partnership arranged, or a mutual agreement for shared services that's with Hamilton Police and with Waterloo Regional Police. In other words, not putting all of our eggs in one basket. So the reality is we could require the services of a public order unit, and we reach out to Hamilton and we find out that Hamilton public order unit's already being used. So then we have the alternate plan to use Waterloo in the event that Hamilton's not available. It's a very labor-intensive type of unit in terms of training to make sure, and you require large numbers of people to be able to do it. So for us, it made sense at the time, and we continue to have that relationship with a shared services agreement with those two services.
Thank you. Any comments on that one? All those in favor of receiving the consent agenda items? Thank you. Next is new business. I'll take number 71 by itself, but I'm going to be asking for 72, 78 in block. But first of all, item number 71, the update on opioid situation in the Niagara region. Can I move and second to put this on? Member Caston, Member Bonham. Comments or questions on this item? Chief, Member Caston.
I'm wondering, through you, Mr. Chair, if we could get a bit of a verbal update from the chief on what he's seeing in the community and what he expects to see in the community, and perhaps the approach moving forward.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes, but.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So a lot of work being done with the OPEN network, which is the Opioid Prevention Education Network of Niagara, with regards to education and communication. The reality is that Niagara is no different than a lot of the other communities in Ontario and Canada, in North America, quite frankly, with regards to the epidemic of opioid use that's occurring, and in particular the prevalence of fentanyl and carfentanil that is finding its way into the various opioid such as heroin, and it's also finding itself into cocaine and a lot of the other illicit drugs that are available on the streets. So, obviously, first and foremost, abstinence from the use of drugs is probably the best policy, but recognizing, of course, that there are a lot of drug users in Niagara, the same as there are across Canada. So we strongly encourage members who are using illicit drugs to be using naloxone kits and to not do drugs while they're by themselves, so that if in the event they do overdose, they have a buddy system, if you will. They have somebody who could administer naloxone, which is a drug that can be administered to sort of reverse the symptoms of the overdose from fentanyl. So, sorry.
Thank you. And I know it's high on the priority list of the entire region in hearing what's happening from the west of Canada, moving eastward. And I know that we're anticipating the problem to get worse. Yourself and your staff are obviously the front line and see it first. I was reminded by committee members and the experts that just because it's the report may say suspected fentanyl doesn't necessarily mean that the result was fentanyl. Are we getting any better at discerning those cases that are directly related to fentanyl?
So with regards to that, I think where you see it maybe highlighted on a report that says suspected fentanyl overdose, the reality is that it takes several months before we have that information back as a result of a post-mortem examination. So it takes that time for us to get the results back from the Center of Forensic Science to confirm whether or not there was in fact fentanyl or carfentanil in the blood that was drawn from the deceased. So we have a good working relationship with the coroner's office here in Niagara, and we're trying to get that information as quickly as possible through the coroner's office and again to public health, so that they have the most accurate stats as to where those events are occurring. And from our perspective on the front line, those events are occurring primarily in the three large municipalities within Niagara, so St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, and Guelph.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I was shocked to hear the news that you told us earlier about the the finding on Carlton Street in St. Catharines and how real it makes it for us in terms of it's here, it's happening, and I'm sure that you see it more than we do as a board, but it tells us that it is here and that we're having to deal with it on a more continual basis, and that I'm hoping that we can enforce it as much as possible. I know the community, the minute they see the word suspect in a report, it's automatically considered to be a real situation. So having the data up front will give us the ability to be able to react in a better, more responsive way, I think. But I thank you for your work and keeping us posted on this file.
Thank you.
Any other comments on this? No. Oh, I'm sorry, Member Stewart.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the Chief. I'm just curious on this particular file, more than just the fentanyl, but in the whole drug situation. Do you have any feel for what's happening through the service and the various partner agencies that deal with this? Where we're at in Niagara as far as any potential safe injection sites or management of the issue of overdosing?
Through you, Mr. Chair. My understanding is that Positive Living Niagara has made application for I may have the term, I think it's temporary injections or temporary injection site, I think is the terminology. So we're optimistic that that would occur, and we recognize that this is a very sensitive matter in that there's going to be a series of ads that will be adorning some bus shelters in the near future with regards to the use of naloxone. The reality is that that opioid use is occurring in our region and people are dying as a result of it. So rather than not talk about it, it's getting out in front of it with ad campaigns and to talk openly about the fact that we need to talk about it and have people use naloxone because it's a life-saving measure. Some of the stats around the use of safe injection sites suggest that some people are not willing to travel very far to go and use those sites. I think most of the data comes from the Vancouver area with that regard, that I think it's about a half a kilometer as far as people are willing to travel to use them. So I know that Glenn Walker through Positive Living Niagara will be keeping very close track of where people are coming from and how frequently that site, the temporary site, is being used.
Deputy Chief Ford, you have a comment?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. If I can just address one issue that I see and I hear routinely when we're speaking with the public, and oftentimes I hear elected officials referencing the term safe injection sites. And if I could perhaps caution and respectfully request that the language used be supervised consumption sites. I think if we tie the word safe to this, we give a false or misleading impression that we think it's okay to inject illicit contraband into our bodies. I think, and to use the word consumption as opposed to injection, I think allows for a broader application. So I encourage you as elected officials to consider that terminology supervised consumption sites.
Member Stewart, you're still.
Thank you. Through you again, Chair. I think it's important. I don't know what role police would have in this. Maybe just a role as a partner. And thank you, Bill Forty, for Deputy Forty, for clarifying that. I think those of us that try to follow this and learn as much as we can realize that this is not condoning. This is harm reduction, and having the opportunity to perhaps reach some of the people. We'll never reach them all, but some of the people that are addicted. I think some people, many people in society maybe don't understand, which brings me to the idea of education programs should these, type of things become available in Niagara for the rest of Niagara, because I know some people sort of feel that, well, you just stop using it, and I don't think they truly understand addiction and what it is. And I don't know what role the police may have in that. Maybe the role is just as a partner for these agencies that are moving forward in this area. But I think it's very important. It's part of crime prevention. It's part of, almost victim services, because I think addicts are more victims than they are criminal. So I'd be a big supporter of the police at least having a partnership hand in what's going on in this to benefit the vulnerable people in our area. So hopefully there'll be some involvement of the police in that.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to turn it over to Deputy to respond to that.
Thank you, Chief, and through you, Chair. Just an added piece to this report, and for your awareness, Member Stewart, both Deputy Chief Forty and I also sit on the sub-anchor table from Niagara Region, which is led by our local health integration network and Dr. Johnson, I believe, from NHS. So it really is, I think, in fact, if we think about Bill 175, and if everything comes true down that way about bringing the entire community together to talk about some of the social issues that exist, that's already happening in Niagara. I think there's a lot to be proud of. We didn't initiate it, we were brought into it, and we certainly appreciate being around because we understand this issue just isn't about enforcement, it just isn't about treatment or harm reduction. It's also, it's all those pieces plus education and the best way to do those things at the grassroots level so that our community is best served by all the social agencies that are working. So that is happening now, and we've been at a number of meetings already. Obviously getting together with our healthcare partners, there's some great synergies that can come from that.
Thank you for that.
Just to top up on that as well, I sit on the steering committee for Open as well, and there are a number of subcommittees that have been established through Open, and we have representation from a number of our members on those various subcommittees as well. So really is a lot of collaboration and communication going on between the various partners right across Niagara.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, I haven't. Chief, I read in the paper or something yesterday about a new fentanyl that they did some arrests in Western Ontario where it's laced with carfentanil. It was a heroin that was laced with carfentanil, and I don't know if they said 1,000 times worse or 10,000 times worse. So the question to me from some citizens in the past few weeks has been, why can't, and I tried to answer it, I get the point of having to have evidence and stuff, but they ask, why can't the drug pushers in a case like this be arrested for attempted murder? So I'd like you to explain the answer so I can tell them to go to the video and watch what this gentleman said. Please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, carfentanil is, the last stats I had heard was it's 100 times more powerful than fentanyl, and there are no known uses for carfentanil to be prescribed to humans. It's primarily, it was designed for big animals, large animals, for use by veterinarians. So with regards to attempted murder charges, probably one of the most difficult, and any of the Crown attorneys that we've worked with will tell us that it is one of the most difficult charges to be able to convict somebody of in the criminal court process, because really the big hurdle that you have to be able to prove is criminal intent. And so a lot of times what we have to prove is knowledge that the heroin that they're selling, that they had knowledge of the fact that it was laced with fentanyl or it was laced with carfentanil. And then we also have to be able to prove that they had intent when they were trafficking the drug to murder or kill the individual that was potentially using it. So those are the hurdles that we have to overcome in terms of getting sufficient evidence with regards to a criminal prosecution, or at least some of the hurdles that we have to overcome.
So then a manslaughter might be in line for something like that, because as a result of their consequences, if you knew that this drug was for big animals, help me here. I can just see people watching this saying, why couldn't you charge somebody when they knew this was for, let's say, elephants? They gave it to a person knowing probably that they would harm them. Could we ever charge somebody like that?
So through you, Mr. Chair, one of the additional charges that's in the criminal code that's available to us is criminal negligence causing death. So that is an option, and again, where it's appropriate and where the evidence leads us to believe that we were able to gain sufficient grounds to be able to charge somebody with criminal negligence causing death, we would certainly go down that road. There has been cases in other jurisdictions where that charge has been laid, and there have been successful prosecutions of that charge. So we continue to monitor the situation, and every case is really on a case-by-case individual basis.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments or questions on this item? All those in favor? Thanks. Carried. It's been suggested to me that we can't move all these next ones in blocks, so we'll go through them. Item number 72, the property auction services change in service provider. Can I have a mover and seconder on this, please? Member Stewart, Member Bonham, comments or questions on this item? All those in favor? Carried. Item number 73, the fundraising request for Constable Dale Racine educational bursary. Mover and seconder on this, please. Member Ganzel, Member Stewart, comments or questions on this? All those in favor? Carried. Number 74, NRPS Special Fund request, motorcycle ride for dad. I know this is near and dear to Ken's heart. Mover and seconder, Member Caslin, Member Ganzel. Ken, would you like to comment on this? Go ahead.
Yes, Chair, thank you. As you know, I participated in this for a number of years and certainly support the request. I think this is a very worthy cause, and I look forward to Member Caslin this year, now that he has joined the two-wheeled motorcycle ranks, to come out and participate in the Ride for Dad. There is a kickoff barbecue. Did they put the date in here or not? It's usually in May, held at headquarters.
16th of June?
Right off the
16th of June, phase 3?
16th of, that's part of the ride.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, ride is usually on Saturday. But anyway, we have a kickoff at headquarters, so again, board members will get notification of that, I'm sure, as well. Thank you.
So thank you for that, and we need a picture of you two with your bikes with the training wheels on them. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, 75, NRPS Special Fund request Spartan Warrior Race. Niagara First Responders Refuse to Lose team. Mover and seconder, please. Member Barrett, Member Stewart. Thank you. Any comments on this item? All those in favor? Carried. Number 76, Special Fund request Joe McDonald Memorial Basketball Tournament. Mover and seconder, please. Member Ganzel, Member Caslin. Comments on this item? All those in favor? Carried. 77, Police Services Board Draft Bylaw, Financial Reporting, Control and Procurement of Goods and Services. Mover and seconder on this, please. Member Bonham, Member Ganzel, comments on this item? Member Ganzel.
Thank you. Unfortunately, the last couple of days I was away, so I got back to looking at this the other evening. I'm on page number 14, and it's subsection 11, section 11.2. Now I know what we have here is basically a document showing what was changed or added. I note on 11.2 there's crossouts through all the material in that block. So then, is that what is then Is that replaced by the Appendix A component?
Yeah.
The values? So what we took out is basically recovered in the very back page.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it was consolidated and removed from that section and consolidated with the Schedule A.
Okay, thank you. That was my only concern. We covered it all. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on this item? Member Bonner.
Yes, thank you, Chair, through you. I'm on page 13, and what's caught my attention is item 11.1.5, to consider value for money by evaluating the total cost of acquisition, repairs, staff training, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just wondering, is there any verification of this? Like, to me, this is cost enhancing. Somebody sends in a bid for a good or service, let's say it's stationary, just as an example, and there's a value for money evaluation done by whomever. I don't think there's ever been an evaluation for money done that's cost reducing. So this is increasing the cost to the taxpayers for whatever the good or service is, I would say 99% of the time. Is there any need for independent verification that the surmises, suggestions, machinations, in fact, have any veracity? Thank you.
Chief, do you have someone that can answer that?
I'll have Director DiDonato Tchelos respond to that.
So when we go through the procurement process, if we RFP any item and the region assists us on that, the value for money is taken into consideration because in the scoring of the product itself, we look at a number of items before we look at the dollar amount. We don't even look at the dollar amount until it's completely closed, until we're completely done reviewing the entire product, and then the dollar amount is opened at the end to see what the dollar amount is. So it is scored, value for money is scored within the entire process as one of the items. It usually has less of a weight than the money amount. The money amount usually has a higher weight, but you do need to take it into consideration when you're looking at the entire product. Just because it's the lowest, it may not provide all that we have necessary. So if you have 4 bids, and none of them provide exactly what you're looking for, you have to evaluate them all against each other, and that's what this is referring to. And it would happen at any item. If it's under $10,000 and we're looking at the one item, we would look at the dollar amount, of course, but we'd have to score all of them themselves. So it's within each step of approval, we do look at both items.
Thank you for that. I'm just wondering, is there any independent review of these kinds of decisions through the course of the process? I don't mean every one of them, but it seems to me that, given what I'm reading here, the process could be hijacked. And I'm not suggesting it is, but it has the potential of being hijacked by special interest or whatever to freeze out a supplier of a good or service or whatever. I'm familiar with that. And so I'm concerned that in the absence of an independent third party coming in and reviewing these value for money assessments, that might be a possibility. So is there a requirement for an independent review of these decisions or not? And if not, maybe why not? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is the procurement policy that has been developed with the region, and so I'm not aware that there is that provision for an independent review. Certainly there is the opportunity for a review following the process afterwards if one of the parties is not satisfied with the process.
So that dissatisfaction would be initiated by the, well, I mean, I guess none of the bidders would know whether or not they're low bidders, eh? So necessarily, but that dissatisfaction would have to come from somebody who wouldn't feel that they've been given a reasoned assessment of their submission. Is that who would be wanting to initiate it? Just want to, without rambling much longer, all I'm asking is that, or suggesting rather, that whether it be the region or this board, that that there might want to be some kind of an independent review of some of the decisions that are made on value for money bases, because they do drive enhanced costs in 99.9% of the time. So just making a suggestion that if we're not doing it, it's possibly something that we can consider. I appreciate, Lisa, that it's in conjunction with the region, it's a regional policy, but perhaps some of those people from the region might want to be listening to the comment as well. Thank you.
So just from my personal experience with this, you have a team that reviews each item that there's an RFP issued for. You have a team, a cross-sectional team, and usually you have an independent person sitting in the room from the purchasing unit to oversee the process. So unless there's collusion amongst the group, and you can never ever, as an auditor, past auditor, you know you can never, it's very difficult to stop collusion, but I'm very confident that the process the region has and the process that we put in place finds the best value for our items that we purchase. I've been involved in a number of them. We always rely on the purchasing expert, either from the region or from our service, to provide us guidance. Everyone in the room is very professional. And even when we purchase items that are like under 25,000, or where there's very limited sources, so in emergency services, there's often very limited vendors who supply some of our specialty equipment. We make every effort to make sure we look at all the vendors, make sure the product is the best and it's exactly what we need. That would be the one area there where it would be like special equipment where value for money would come into play the most, because we're looking for a specific item to provide the services we need. But I'm confident in our service doing the best we can, and in the region as well.
Thank you.
Any other comments on this item? All those in favor of the motion of the bottom? Carried. Item number 78, Police Service Board Administration Limitations and Guidelines in the Special Fund Draft Bylaw. Any comments or questions on that? Mover and seconder, please. Member Bonham, Member Stewart. All those in favor? Carried. Number 79, Police Service Board Draft Bylaw, no fee verified alarm response. Mover and seconder on this item, please. Member Bonham, Member Stewart. Comments on this one? All those in favor? Carried. Number 80, Police Service Board Election-Related Resources Policy. Mover and seconder on this one. Member Barrett, Member Bonham. Any comments on this item? Member Bonham.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I guess my question is, or I know my question is, with regard to the notification, like this seems to be rushing through because we weren't properly notified. Is there a notification protocol that is established that this does not follow, or is there no protocol? I mean, to me, this whole thing boils down to let's rush it through because we got, I don't know, I wouldn't say the process was hijacked, but nevertheless, there's a late notification to the board, and we have to have this kind of a process in place, so we're sort of moving it ahead. Is there a normal protocol that wasn't followed by those who were mandating this? And if so, maybe we should be going back to those people and saying, hey, look, in order to have proper consideration, there might want to be more notification provided. Thank you.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. You're absolutely correct. This is something that was very last minute, and just I actually became aware of it through the regional solicitor at York Region. And it came up through a different conversation that I had about another topic, and in looking at policies. It wasn't on my radar screen, and in fairness, I don't think it was a lot on the Big 12 other police boards' radar screen. We canvassed around. They're very much in the same situation that we are in passing a policy rather quickly just to meet these timelines. I reached out to the regional clerk to ask if they had a policy in place. I think one was, sorry, I might have put the date in here, but recently approved at regional council. So I thought that this time, at least to meet the requirements of this legislation, if the board could adopt today what the region has put in place, and perhaps, I can go back and flag that and revisit, and we can come up with our own bylaw and our own standalone policy when we have a little more time, which is, excuse me, what I'm going to be doing after today. But typically, I would look to the region. I don't want to, I think it just sets you the tax for both. But I was not aware of this legislation, the Municipal Election Modernization Act. And in fact, when it talks about use of municipal or board resources, again, this was back in 2016, and I didn't know if the police board would be considered as part of the local board, and in fact, the interpretation from the York Regional Solicitor was that we did fall into that category, and when I investigated further, we do. So it's here today for that, so you're quite right.
So should there be a protocol established such that we don't get blindsided, so to speak?
Thank you. We do have an information sharing protocol that's in place between my office and the regional clerk's office. And in fairness to the regional clerk, she was very quick in getting the information to me. I can't speak about why it wasn't communicated a little bit earlier, but I did pick it up on one of the regional council agendas as well, and have a copy of that policy. So I can't offer any more than that.
Good.
Thank you. So this is likely to happen again, or could happen again, that somebody would pass a Municipal Elections Modernization Act at the 11th hour and people could get caught short?
I hope it wouldn't happen again. Normally we're notified of when new pieces of legislation come out that affect police boards, but in this case, I don't, it wasn't communicated. I was not aware through any of my policy research groups, connections that we have. We were all caught off guard on this, so I just don't have anything further to add to that, but I hope it doesn't happen.
Okay. Member Stewart.
Thank you, Chair, through you. So just want to make sure I understand correctly that we're basically adopting the same policy as the region has adopted on the 4th of April. So, and basically it's with respect to this election period, and before the next election arrives, assuming the legislation is still in place, we will have our own vetted out policy more defined to the board. So this is like a stopgap to deal with it, is that correct?
Yes, thank you. And that's exactly what this is just to meet that timeline so that we get this policy in place before May 1st. And I have it on the top of my to-do list to start the process and get a board bylaw in place that's specific to police board resources.
Well, considering that after this election will be 4 years, we'll certainly have some time to get it in place and have a fulsome discussion on it. Thank you.
Any other comments on this item? All those in favor? Carried. Next is the number 81, the annual report, the NRPS business plan, year 2 activity report. Mover and seconder on this, please. Member Stewart, Member Bonham. Any comments on this? Member Stewart, do you have any comments on this? All those in favor of this? Carried. Now supplemental agenda item number 82, the draft NRPS audited financial statements, year ended December 31st, 2017. We have 3 items on this. Oh no, we have a motion on it. Mover and seconder on this, please. Member Barrick, Member Stewart, comments on this? If there's any comments on item 2 on it, the NRPS report on audited financial statements, any questions, they have to go in confidential to answer. I'm not trying to stop it, I'm just saying. Any comments or questions on this? I see none. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, good. Item number 83, the Ontario Special Investigations Act, SIU legal indemnification auxiliary members. Mover and seconder on this item, please. Member Bonham, Member Ganzel. Comments on this item? Member Stewart.
Thank you, Sharon. Through you, just have a question. I had noted this in looking over the new Police Services Act that auxiliary members would now be required to fall under the new SIU. I know it's got a little different initial with it this time, but I'm just curious because also there are some changes with respect to special constables being subject to SIU and being compelled to succumb to questions and whatever. And I'm wondering, is that already covered in our collective agreements, or do we need to apply something like this to our special constables as well?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the collective agreement provides, because they are civilian members of the service, it does provide legal indemnification for special constables already.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, the last item C65 is to move a report into public. Special Investigations Unit, case number. Mover and second on this, please. Member Bonham, Member Barrick. Any comments or questions on this item? All those in favor? Carried. Any new business in public? Okay, that's the end of our public session. Conference will start as soon as we're done with the cameras. Thank you very much.